Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio. You know, every third Thursday, it is time to chat with Lee Brovedani. Lee is known as the trust architect and also the soul journey doula. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but she's a speaker and workshop facilitator on trust, and she is recognized as a top thought leader on trust by the organization Trust Across America. She's also the author of 2 books. One is Trust Me, Restore Belief and Confidence in an Uncertain World. See, this is a big topic of today. And the other is Trusted, Secret Lessons from an Inspired Leader. I encourage you to go to her website, thetrustarchitect.biz, and also for her work as an end-of-life midwife, or you can say death doula, you can go to souljourneydoula.com. All the links will be in the show notes, no matter where you're listening, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple. It'll all be there. But I do want to say this. Today's topic is about rebuilding trust. And I think, you know, that can go on a personal level, a professional level. If you are at the end of your life and knowing, and maybe it's time to make amends. I mean, I even look at it with my friends going through rehab or going through AA. One of the first things they do is have to apologize for things they've done in the past. So it's a big conversation to have. So welcome back, Lee. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. It's good to, and I know that Nancy is on the line as well. So hi, Lisa and Nancy.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, this
Cool.
Nancy. Fancy Nancy is here. Yeah, we're in Arkansas today. Actually, we're recording this from Tiffany's Bed and Breakfast. I got to give them a shout out on 60 acres outside of Hot Springs. It's a beautiful day. I'm looking out in the woods, and you're in Nova Scotia. What is your view? Do you have trees? What's it look like out there?
Oh yeah, no, I'm staying at an apartment in downtown Halifax, which is on Quinn Pool. So just a big shout out to all of the fabulous little restaurants close to us. And here in Halifax and in Nova Scotia, there's kind of this special meal that you get if you've been out celebrating and maybe had too many beers, and it's Donaires. So the king of Donaires is right next door. I'm looking out over trees and a little bit of rain right now. But for anyone who hasn't been to Halifax, I have to tell you, it's absolutely gorgeous. It really missed most of the fires, so it's still absolutely a place that you want to come to and visit.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. That's awesome.
Love
What is in that meal? I can't pronounce it. Donaires?
Donaire?
Donaire.
Donaire.
Is it a donut?
Yeah. No, it is a spicy meat, and they have kind of a sweet garlicky sauce and onions and tomatoes, and it's in a pita.
Oh, wow.
This sounds like my
good.
kind of food. Yeah, because
it is the
sounds
best thing to eat if you
multicultural.
don't want to have a hangover. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's great.
Well, I need to go hang out there, you know. But listen, the topic of today is really fascinating to me because, like I was saying, like there are times in life when you have to make amends, and it really it's interesting because I know people have done something wrong and they'll go, you know what, I'm going to move town or something, or you know, instead of face up to something that they may have done, or be completely oblivious. You know, everybody learns their lessons at a time that they learn them, right? And and rebuilding trust. You can't really rebuild trust without the other person or entity, because this could be business, or you know what I mean? Both sides have to kind of commit to it. I use the word commit, which is one of your 5 tenets of trust.
Yeah, commitment. Yeah. And, you know, if you haven't made mistakes, then you really haven't been trying hard enough, because I don't think you can go through this life
You haven't done anything
without making mistakes. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but in the moment, I feel so 100% right. And yet when I look back over my life, I can now see the mistakes that I made that I was so certain were the best possible. It was the answer. It was the decision. And I was 100% right. And now looking back with a bit more wisdom, I go, oh, what was I thinking?
Because you know, you make different mistakes at different times in your life based on experience. And so if you haven't
Absolutely.
experienced something, it is likely you will make a mistake,
Yeah.
and down the road, you learn from what you just did. And so the next time around, you don't make that mistake, hopefully.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
granny used to just tell me that if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything, you're not living. But she also said that you have to learn to trust yourself, to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and try again.
Yeah.
That
And
it's inevitable. You are going to make
yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah. And a really wise philosopher by the name of Mighty Mouse said, if no one made mistakes, there wouldn't be erasers on the ends of pencils. So,
Oh, well, hey,
True. That's right.
that,
wisdom
I like
from the
that.
mouse.
Yeah. Hey, we did a
I
thing
like that.
on the guy who did the eraser. Gosh, what was that? It was one of our big weekly blend shows. There was a whole thing. There's actually like a National Pencil Eraser Day or something like that, where we all bow down to the rubber man who said we could
And then
put
we
rubber
came
on
out
the
with
end.
pens. We came out with pen and ink, and that messed
And
that
that
up.
was that. And then somebody had to make Tippix. Or what do you call it? White out here. Tippix? I
Yeah.
don't know.
It
Anyway,
fixed.
we're all
Nice.
past that because now we have like just, edit, delete, on phones. I mean, do any of us know how to use a pen anymore? It's kind of gone out the window these days, but, the
Cursive
trust,
writing. Yeah. Definitely
yeah,
gone. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole, making mistakes is reality. And it's using those to change to change things and to fix things, is where the lesson is sometimes. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And what about ego and having to, that's, I think, where a lot of relationships, whether it's professional or not, if egos are involved, then don't necessarily get learned.
Ecos. Yeah.
And we did talk about sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say ego is just it's a self-defense mechanism. That's
Yeah.
all.
And where does confidence and ego intersect, and where does confidence become like being arrogant? And so there's always this fine dance that we do with confidence, ego, and arrogance. And I think confidence is this assurity that you have the confidence. You don't need to be a braggart about it.
Right.
And the arrogance, I don't know about you, but when I see arrogance, it's when people sometimes believe they're more than they are and hold it and lord it above others. And I'm sure there's a better definition. What would you say it is?
Politics.
Yeah. Are you wanting me to watch my language today? But I think it's actually okay. So if your confidence to me is like understanding that, okay, being confident in yourself is believing in yourself and knowing that, yeah, you could fall down and make a mistake. Confidence is, yeah, you got to get out there and sing on stage, right? I'm just going to use that as right? Maybe someone's going out to karaoke. And knowing that anything could go wrong when you do it, you do improv, right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You could bomb, right? So you have to commit. So here we're back to the commitment part. And even if you're bombing, I listen to so many comedian podcasts. It's like one of my favorite things is to because there's a commitment you have to do going on stage. And that's something I understand from the singing standpoint and even hosting all the live broadcasts we've done when things are going down. I mean, literally you still commit. Like we are like the band on the Titanic and, which we've actually reenacted, by the way, when we had a violin player, we used to do that. That's a whole other story, but there's a commitment to it. So if you know that you're going to do your absolute best come what may, because you cannot control everything. So I think control has to do with it, but confidence is about confidence in yourself to say, okay, I can do my best. I will do my best. I have confidence in myself to do the best that I have in my abilities or knowledge. That is confidence. Ego comes from fear and
Mm. The
a lot
baloney.
of sometimes ignorance and sometimes, some people are just,
It's a
they're
form
just
of
egotistical. Yeah.
intimidation.
Or just
It's
self-centered.
intimidation too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you get into business, some of the old school business tactics are really, some of them are actually you're not going to have staff very much longer if you, use the bullying tactics. And,
Well, the autocratic business side, and how do you, if you've had a boss like that, or you've had a leader, not even a boss, but if you've had a leader of a company that has worked as an autocratic bully kind of leader, first of all, how do you rebuild the trust when you are trying to get and keep good people? And so that's one thing when you're looking at rebuilding.
Would you say rebuilding, would they have to come back to the people that are there and the people that did work there and say, hey, I now just realized that I was a complete idiot. I'm really trying to watch my language. It's not going to do very well today. But but I realized that is not the management style that I meant. I didn't, someone told me this is how you're acting, and that was not, or maybe I thought that was the way to get things done. And now I realize no. And you have to hope that, an apology, but a genuine apology, right?
Yeah.
That would be
so
the
if
first
we go
thing.
back to the whole 5 C's of trust. So for people, we haven't gone through these for a while, but it's caring, commitment, consistency, competence, and communication. So you have to first communicate. If you want to rebuild trust, then you have to acknowledge where it was damaged. So you have to acknowledge the trust break. And then you have to, it's not enough just to acknowledge it because, there's that adage, words are cheap. So you have to be consistent in your actions going forward. You can't just say sorry. You have to show sorry. So and you show it, but I'm not saying prostrate yourself and keep apologizing. I'm saying that there has to be, I'm sorry for this action. Here's what I learned. And going forward, this is what I'll do. So it's kind of a 3-step process. It's, I'm sorry for, and then really specific. And what you learned from that mistake, because even if it's, I told, if it's in a business setting, it's, we've lost customers because of this. And so I need to apologize to people and be very specific. And here's what we're going to do going forward. And then when it's on a personal level, it's kind of similar, except it's even more specific. So if I said something that was really hurtful to you, and I can't imagine doing that because we're all friends, but let's say if I said something inadvertently that was really insulting, then I'd have to recognize what it was that I said, the impact that it had on you. And I've had these discussions with family members that a lot of times people say, well, that wasn't what I intended. That's not what I meant. And I always say, well, it's like a car accident. No one ever intends to get in a car accident, but the impact is that damage was done, hurt occurred, and maybe the car was damaged. So you have to recognize the impact. It's the same when you are apologizing to a person. You have to, even if it wasn't your intent to hurt or cause damage, empathy shows that you understand the impact. You can see how it hurt the person. And so you acknowledge that. And then it's the same thing going forward. I realized when I said XYZ that this is the impact that it had. And now that I know, I'll make sure that I won't say your baby's ugly, whatever it was you said.
Nice.
Hey, remember that
Even though
Seinfeld
your
episode
baby
with the
is really
ugly baby? No, they all look like aliens. Come on, they all do.
I once had this boss who, when I was working in an insurance company, and we had like 6 people in a office, and our desks were all next to each other, and he would walk down the aisle, 3 desks on each side, and he demanded that your stapler be out on the desk so he could pound each person's stapler as he went down the aisle. And I thought, this is a form of intimidation.
What a weirdo, too.
I just thought, this is weird, man. And so one day I just put mine in the drawer and he didn't even look, he just pounded where the stapler was supposed to be. And he hit the desk. And I'm thinking, what's the difference? You hit the desk, you hit the stapler, you're still hitting, and so I got called into the office and I promptly quit. And he said, well, you don't need to quit. You just need to apologize. And I was like, oh, no. You need to quit and apologize because what you're doing is intimidating your staff. He could not see that. I'm like, what is the point of what you're doing? He goes, well, it's his ritual to start the day. I'm like, man, you are messed up. But, there's a thing there with the unwillingness to look at the action, think it through, and ask yourself, why am I pounding the stapler? What is that? Starting the day could be a pledge to allegiance.
His intent might have been, I'm building this, like, what a fun guy I am and what a great guy, I'm sure his intent didn't match the impact.
That was awful. It was
okay.
awful.
Yeah.
Well, remember that one Friends episode where Chandler, every time he went to work, the guy would smack his butt? And he was like, what the hell is that? And then when the guy stopped, he got all upset because he would smack somebody else's butt instead. Like, it was weird. I'm like, now I feel, listen, when you hang around as many dogs and cats, it's all about butts. Like we do all the time. There's always an animal and they always show you, like, look at my butt. But it was kind of an interesting thing. It's very much like the guy with the stapler. But the guy was like, hey, look at me, like what you're talking about, Lee. I think Nancy's guy was a little bit more of like an arrogant, like, I'm in charge, smack. You know what I mean? Like, I'm one of these people, like, I don't even like I don't like going to a hotel or checking in and having to ring the bell. I hate ringing the bell. Like, so it's kind of like a ding dong rude thing. Even though they want it, to me, it's just a weird, like, I don't know. Am I disturbing you? It just feels that way. It's just who
it's
it's weird.
Being served.
Yeah. The ding, maybe it's from when we lived in England, not England, Kenya, where back in the colonial days where they would ring a little bell and hope their servants would come running out to give them.
That was bad. I couldn't do it.
I can't stand the ringing of the bell because it just seems so arrogant to me. Like, ding, I'm here and I'm better than you. You need to serve me. Like, I can't stand it. Like, that's just me. And it's just my own weirdness. But anyway, so the bing, like the ding of the bell to me, when Nancy talks about the guy with the stapler, I feel like it's just like his little Hitler way of being authoritative. Like, I'm here. I'm your boss. I can smack things and you need to have it there in this position. That's anal, man. See, I'm talking about butts again.
And for him to rebuild trust, he would have had to have said, it came to my attention that this isn't something that people enjoy, and I'm really sorry. He needed to apologize. And here's what I'm going to go do in the future. I thought it was interesting, and it was an exercise I did when I was speaking on stage. And I would say, when talking about trust, I'd say, I want everyone to take a moment and just think of someone who broke your trust. And then I'd watch the faces and you could see like hurt and disappointment and anger and everything around someone's faces. And I said, is there anyone willing to share an experience that they had? And like all kinds of hands would go up and people would talk about something. And it could have happened like a decade ago. And that amount of passion that was still in their voice, they would say, this is what this person did. And they destroyed my trust. One person said that they had a boss, a manager, and they were going to apply for a job. And this boss said, I will recommend you for the position when the big boss comes in from out of town. And then at the end of the meeting, he went up and he said, "So what did he say?" And the person said, "Oh, I didn't bring it up."
Oh,
That's
dude.
mean.
And completely broke the trust. And
Yeah.
this was a person that they had considered really close to. They were not only their manager, they were also a friend. So it went on, and I said, "So what happened?" He said, "I quit." And I'm still
Yep.
not friends with that
Well,
person.
but this is what
Mhm.
happens. And this is where I want to go with the first part where we, at the beginning of the conversation, I said, doesn't both sides have to commit to this? Because maybe if someone didn't fix it right there and then, timing wise, the other person quits and is pissed forever.
Yeah.
And the other person is just going on their lives. It's like a hit and run,
Yeah.
the person who hit the car keeps going. And this just happened to a friend of ours, man. It sucks. His whole van got wiped out while he was on vacation. Someone just came down the street and whacked his van, smashed it anyway, and kept going. But
the other side of that exercise that I do is I say, I want you to think of a time when you broke someone's trust.
She swung
And
the
what
pendulum.
happens is crickets. It's crickets.
Ah.
And I've had someone say, "Lee, trust is one of my core values. I've never broken someone's trust."
Oh,
And it's
Oh,
just not
come on.
possible.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's not, no, I remember as a kid going and lying to Nancy, like
Yeah.
totally getting
No
caught in a
kidding.
lie.
No.
Yeah, I think I was skipping school again, or because that was my biggest,
And
I was always skipping school. And so Nancy was like, and she'd get in trouble, like from, we had really the old white, principal telling Nancy, well, this
my God.
always happens with single mothers.
They
And
called me,
give her
they
house.
said I was an unfit mother
Single, because you're single.
because I was
Oh
single.
my God.
And they
Oh,
called me
yeah.
an unfit mother.
Little
And,
misogynistic
it was
sons of
just,
guns.
it was,
But
but
so she said to me, "You're lying to me, and I know you're lying, and here's why I know." And you basically caught, and none of us could really get away from it because one thing Nancy was good at, she knew all the parents of my friends. She made sure she knew who, what, and where. And I
yeah,
never really got 100% away with anything. There's a few things here
no.
and there, but she knew, and I broke her trust, and she says, "That's it. Our
Mhm.
relationship is devastated at this point. You lied to me. You know this is what happens to me. So you decided to take this risk knowing it can ruin our relationship and how it's going to hurt me as an individual by them doing this. You know this is what's happening and you know it was wrong." I mean, it was like the best guilt trip ever.
It's a
And
good
she's
guilt
like,
trip.
"That's it. You're going to have to work to build my trust." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, I just said, "I'm sorry." She's like, "That's not good enough because this is the second time, third time, whatever, 10th time. You keep doing this, but you obviously don't value or,
Yeah.
you don't value this now." Holy hell. I mean, it was like, I have to work. Like, it was like, you better
Wow.
yeah. I mean, you've hurt your mother. We have a strong relationship. So that sucked. Like when I realized, like, your mother's getting called this and it's your fault. And even though they're wrong, we can't even bond over the fact that they're wrong about how they, treat single women. Because now you've, stepped over this line.
And it was
that's the thing in
incredibly
relationships. Like when you step over a line, that's where trust gets broken. Loyalty, there's loyalty. And I think that's the huge thing and I'm a very incredible, it's in my personality. It's in my horoscope. Virgos are insanely loyal, but then when you really push over a loyal Virgo, man, you don't want to be around me. You will hear the loudest yelling, swearing human being and upset person who will probably never talk to you again. And when someone pulls the rug under me, you have to really do it a lot, just like what Nancy did with me on that. It'll take a lot. And when it happens, it's over. It's done. You have pushed the buttons. You've had warnings. It's over and out. And at that point, I will tell you it's going to be loud and I will tell you and if you don't fix it, but at that point, I think people don't hear those warnings. And it's really, there's a two-way street on this. So like Nancy had that door open for me to fix it, saying, "You're to rebuild. But where at that door was like, it was a crack open, right? But if the other person's like, screw you, I quit, like that guy, how does anything get rebuilt if they don't leave that crack open? You know what I mean? That
And it
two-way
makes
part.
a huge difference when, honestly, a mom to a child, as angry as Nancy was, and the age that you were, I can tell you that from my perspective, the door, it wasn't just a crack open.
Mhm.
It was only closed part way.
Oh yeah, it was a big wake
you just
up.
have so much acceptance.
It was a big wake up call. It was like, here, you're going to have to grow. And I mean, I was old enough to know.
What you were doing was incredibly dangerous.
Yeah,
too.
I was stupid.
Because we were in Africa, and then she's all wandering around by herself, and I'm like, are you?
Yeah.
I was just, I can't even now.
Well, we don't need to go into everything that I do. Like, I wasn't that bad, but we don't need to go into all of that. But I did, yeah. The last few years of high school, I was completely bored with school. Let's put it that way, and wanted out. And
me too. And I think that's where we've bonded. We've had those talks, Lisa, you and I got expelled for skipping school as well. Went back
and my best friend,
but...
Melissa, she's the same way. She says, we all wanted to go open our own companies. That was, and we were having that discussion. She goes, no, we wanted to go build our own companies. And we thought, school, you are not, and honestly, I don't think they really were doing a great job, to be really, really honest. So,
no, they weren't.
And Mel is like, one of the smartest people I know, and kicks ass, raising millions of pounds for nonprofits, all over England. She's amazing. And you watch that, I go, we just knew, because we were entrepreneurial. I mean, we worked jobs, we did all kinds of stuff, and we were not, but
you don't
were lame. Just because you lame. But sometimes you have to grow up and learn. You're going to have to do stuff you don't like in life.
Yeah.
To move forward. Yeah. And that was a lesson. And Nancy just she shook me. I was like, I didn't understand that I was affecting our relationship. I was just, it's all, so what, I'll get into detention again. Who cares? I've done that a million times, and I'll skip that too. I was in that kind of teenage mode of, it's all about me. Arrogance. And I know everything.
Arrogance.
I think you and I shared I had what was called a smart mouth, and so, but I did some things that weren't.
Now she's improv.
Bright.
Now she's in improv with her smart mouth.
That's it, though.
Well,
it's a talent.
It's just thinking on your feet. When I was called into the principal's office, I recognized my error right away, because I didn't get the same. You had to have a note from your parents every time you missed a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I would just get my friend to write my note. And so I recognized when they had all of the notes on the desk that I wasn't using the same person to write all of the notes. So my mother's signature changed 50 times.
You didn't know me in school. Yeah, you should have had me around.
Lisa charged her
you were better at forging your mom's. Yeah, see,
I forged every. No, I would have them.
She sold the notes.
I sold them. I made money.
Notes.
Yep. I sold notes.
Wow.
Sick notes. Everything. And I had everyone's signatures because I could copy. My nickname Kasuku is because I can copy things.
She's a parrot.
Wow.
I'm an original cop. I can copy voices. I can copy signatures. I can. It's a very. I could be a really good criminal if I wanted to be one, but I think
fortunately, everybody who's listening, she isn't, and she doesn't do this anymore. So don't call her.
Yeah. Oh no. I'll open shop again.
Lisa,
come on, why not? I'm kidding.
No.
But that's what you in school. But then you didn't. But you see, I was so busy doing that, and I think it was an entrepreneurial side, and it was fun. And yet, on the same time, I didn't realize, hey, I'm hurting these people here. And what was around, Nancy had to go, hey, you need to understand pain. And now I'm going to take this away from you so you can feel what I'm feeling and what you're doing. And and I know what you're saying. Her doors are open, but she needed me to, have a come to Jesus moment. And it worked. Yeah. And I was like, oh, a relationship. Oh, oh, this means something. You don't take it for granted. And so I think a lot of times with trust and the rebuilding in relationships is taking people for granted, not listening when the warning has been told to you because it's not convenient for your direction at that moment. And I think
And
that's
then
a
there
hard
are
thing.
those people that I think anyone who's listening would say, yeah, and there are those people who just are dishonest and have no problem with those big lies. And so they can look at you straight in the eye, knowing they're not telling the truth. There's one thing that it's easier to forgive if it's, so someone made said the wrong thing or said something that was hurtful, but it wasn't intentional. Compared to, I've worked for people who were just like would look at you in the eye and lie, and regardless of the damage that it would do. Like working for one guy, and oh no, the company's in great shape, and go ahead and buy that car, you're safe, and then went out of business the next month and said, well, I couldn't tell you because I didn't want you to quit. It was like, but
Dude,
you didn't have
rotten.
to say anything. You didn't have to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of people that you just never trust again. And I have worked for people who seem like pathological liars. And I think all of us can think of famous politicians who are famous liars.
Oh, good God, don't
Really?
start me. But that's the thing. Sometimes trust cannot be rebuilt unless it's really, truly genuine. And a lot of times this goes to the doula side. It comes when people are on their deathbed and they go, God, I really did do this. Now am I going to go to heaven? And I think suddenly you see people suddenly believe in God that didn't care about it during their whole life. And so it comes to that weird part of their life where suddenly it's like, oh, I need to,
it's called playing the odds.
Yeah. So it's kind of that end part. So, on your soul journey doula side, do you see that? Is that something for people to work on when they know that, oh, I'm reaching those end stages? Maybe I do really need to make amends. I mean, that's why I brought up AA, and I know we touched on that before when we were talking about end of life and legacy, that in AA, they really do make people say sorry. And it's usually not even a conversation because it doesn't need to spark any drama so that the person starts using again or drinking again or whatever the situation is. And to not interfere with someone's life that you've already hurt, but to let them know, hey, I'm fixing things and I'm sorry. I sucked, whatever it was.
One of the things as an HR, I worked as an HR manager for a couple of companies. And one of the things that I learned from observation is if people weren't consistent in their ability to do the job, if they were absolutely brilliant one day and they were in the toilet the next day and they couldn't carry it through the next day, that it could be like I'd start looking for different things. It could have been they might have some mental health issues. That would be one thing. Or it could be an addictions issue. Yeah. And if it was an addictions issue, then there was a lot of trust things that had to be brought up. Now, in Canada, if someone had a recognized addiction, if they were willing to go for treatment, then they kept their job. You would hold a job for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. So if you would go to, and I saw that in the military too, that there was, because I used to do training. I wasn't part of it, of the military, but I did training for the military around emotional intelligence and had some great conversations with some of the HR people. And they said that if a person had the problem and were willing to go for treatment, then they would work with them and they would allow them to rebuild the trust and keep their job.
That's awesome.
So
I think that's,
no, I
like that because it gives people that second chance, because addiction comes from trauma most of the time. Or you look at Prince, right? The musician, and the whole fentanyl epidemic going across this country. where it's
Yeah.
something that was pushed on you from drug companies and doctors and a lot of people that shouldn't have. And, people ended up addicted, that shouldn't be and didn't have maybe an addictive personality, or maybe they did, but some of these drugs are really addictive. And they always said, heroin, you could take it once and you're addicted for life. I never did. South Africa did do that. They did really good anti-drug commercials where they showed people taking heroin and then throwing up. And when I saw that, I went, I'm not throwing up. I'm not
But
taking
Lisa,
that.
remember when you had your arm problem, right? And you were on Vicodin, I had to take it away.
Yeah, when they did surgery on my arm, they gave me Vicodin, but
Yeah.
you get weird. And like Prince
And
died.
after a while, I'm like, that's enough of that.
Prince
Yeah.
was not a druggie. He was was a Jehovah's Witness, I think he was a Jehovah's Witness, and very about clean life and clean living. And he only did it because of pain, and he ended up taking more and more and more, and that's how he died. And he even was calling on, I think, a priest or a preacher or a mentor or something to help him somehow work through the pain management. But anyway, the reality of those, aside from those kind of medically induced addictions, let's put it that way, addiction comes from trauma and something happening in a cycle in your life, or
it's usually emotional
or DNA,
and
chemical
not physical.
or chemical.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, so what Canada's doing, I think that's really remarkable to help, because there's a lot of stigma.
Now I'd have to,
yeah.
My cousin was in an accident and her pelvis was broken, and so she was given really strong painkillers, and it went on for quite a while. And then she did recognize that she was getting addicted to these, so she went to the doctor and said, okay, now I need to know the program or the regimen for getting off these. And the doctor said, oh, there is no regimen, you just stop taking them.
Well, yeah, right.
And so she had to go, her and her husband, like they had 2 kids. They had someone take care of the kids for a week. And she said they together went, and she said she had the week from hell. And she, at the end of the week, she was able to quit taking them. But it amazes me that I don't think there is a standard procedure. And for anyone listening, if you're a medical professional, tell me I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But when you prescribe those really strong painkillers and they've been on them for a while, do you have a regimen to get them off of the painkillers?
But it's not only that. When doctors prescribe medicines, there's all kinds of side effects. It's not always addiction. There's side effects to other parts of your body that they somehow forget or neglect to warn you about.
Well, and this actually does lead to trust, right? Because you trust in the medical profession, and people make mistakes, and every doctor makes mistakes, every nurse makes mistakes, just like anybody. It is the way it is, and you can't be perfect. Pilots have, I think, one of the pilots and drivers and, getting in an Uber, that could, anybody driving, every time we get on the road, it's like, okay, you have to have this law of the universe trust that somebody's not going to be an idiot and smack into your car, and that you don't become the idiot and do it, right? Right. So there's that weird law of the universe of that. But the medical profession, you have to trust that they're going to do the right thing to your body. And so I have a thing about that. Like, if you don't like your doctor and he doesn't, and maybe he's the best, I don't know. That's kind of a weird, you have to really rate, like, can you handle this? Even if you don't, like, if he's, rude or whatever, can you handle that fact if he's one of the best? Is he the best? Do you trust him? Do you piss him off and then go, uh-oh, like, so it's kind of a weird, the medical profession and trust, I think they should all get rid of their white jackets, and there'd be a lot more trust.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't think my doctor wears one, and we just got a new one in Savannah because we only moved there a year ago, and it always surprises me that they keep getting like younger and younger, and then I realize no, I'm just getting older. They all look
Well,
like kids to me now.
Well,
Oh.
I think the profession is changing because it needs to and has to, and they are trying to lessen the white coat syndrome that a lot of older people have because they've been through. You see white, and you're like, I'm leaving because it's going to hurt.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
think
but
that they're learning that after so many years of treatment under different doctors, the white, which used to stand for cleanliness,
mm,
is now fear. It's a fear factor now
Yeah.
for some people, not for everybody, but for some people.
well, but the medical profession, I think, had this really. That's why they have the trust factor is bedside manner allows people to have some trust in them because they're touching your body in places you don't want. It's like, I don't want you to see
I'm
this.
not going to
Oh,
talk
we've seen
about
it all.
that.
You know what I mean?
But
But
doctor, I came because my shoulders sore. What
yeah.
are you touching there for? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Here we go. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of different things that go with it, but that trust part's there. And it's crucial because it's somebody's body. But in the rebuilding of it, I find it, I think it has to be, I think we're all walking around not knowing if we've created distrust with people. I remember once, in our business, a client that was a little bit up and down all around with what she was doing. And, um, this is years ago. And she renewed some advertising and the invoice went out. And unfortunately, the invoice, like everything tripled up on the bill and it wasn't correct. And we didn't catch it because it's like one of our bills. Like it's a normal number to us, And she received it and she's like, this is not what you quoted. And I went, oh, it's absolutely not. Please don't pay that. She goes, no. And I said, I'm so sorry. The billing went out and, I didn't see it when it went out. And this is a complete error on our part. Of course, it's this, what I told you, because I didn't even send an email saying, this is the price. This is what you get. This will be followed up. So, I mean, it was already in writing to her that this is what you agreed to. And she would never talk to me again. And I apologized. And I know she used it as an excuse not to pay a bill, but at the same time, I immediately took action on it.
Yeah.
But it was like, it created a sense of distrust, but it was a legitimate error that it could happen to anybody, it's a typo. Like one thing goes ding and then and I would have questioned and said, hey, I thought it was this, and no, we didn't mean that, and it was, and I wonder if people jump to those conclusions so quickly, then I wonder about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and there's another exercise that I do.
Yeah.
Which is, where do you start with trust? So when you've just met a person for the first time, so imagine that you're working in an office and someone new is hired. Mm-hmm. Where do you start with trust from a 1 to 10? Do you completely trust them until they do something, or do you start with no trust and they have to build it? And so when I've done that exercise and I have people line up according to where they are with trust, the majority of people are really towards the middle, which I think is kind of healthy. It's like, well, I'm going to give them a certain amount of trust, but I have to get to know them a little bit. There's some people who say, I don't trust anybody.
Wow.
Anybody. They have to show me that they can be trusted. And then there's the other people who say, I trust everything they do until they don't do something. And I think on either end, you're making a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Personal thing. I think that you have to, in order to have trust, you have to give trust. I really think that and there's a saying, and I can't remember who said it, the fastest way to find out if someone can be trusted is to trust them.
Oh, for sure.
And so give them something and see where they stand. For people who are looking for behaviors that, they're wondering if there's a concern and how do I rebuild trust, there's an infographic that I did. It's the article on my site is called The Impact of Trust, and it's an infographic. And it gives you, what is the concern? What's the possible feelings that someone might feel if this happened? And what is the behavior that you could do to rebuild trust if it's lost? So it's kind of a nice little thing.
I'll link that in the show notes for everyone. Yeah, I'll link that in the show notes. Yeah. So everyone has that.
There's such a thing as reading body language. And I learned that from observing wildlife, whether you're going to be in trouble or not. And you can use the same thing on people. And if you have the wherewithal to meet the person from the body language and the vibes, you can pick up whether or not you should trust. But the way business is done now, okay, you can go over Zoom. That's just not as effective as an in-person meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think people do have this distrust thing on a weird level now where they're, I think it comes from the politics, man. People just don't trust anything anymore because of politics.
The politicians are all cleany weeny and I'm a great guy or a great gal.
I think you have to look at who you are as a person. Are you always out there like, if you go to a grocery store and they ring up the bill wrong, is it, oh, hey, the bill was wrong. Did you make a mistake? Not, hey, they're out there to get my extra money. You know what I mean? And that's the thing I'm talking about. That same thing. That's what happened with us. And I'm going, dude, this has nothing to do with anything. I'm not here to, I'm not, that's not, no, And so yet there's that person who will go, oh, they're trying to sneak something on you. And I've seen, I know a lot of bar owners who have done some really crazy things on trying to track every bartender's pour, which I agree because a lot of bartenders will overpour and for tip money. But if you're not taking care of your staff, you are going to have a problem of theft and trust if you're not taking care of your staff. And so I really believe that it comes from leadership. And if you screw up as a leader, like you're saying, rebuild it immediately, start communicating, do something. But if you are treating your staff like, and you know what, then they're going to start doing things behind your back. They are. Absolutely. They're going to, because they simply won't care. I obviously didn't care about my school leadership because I really didn't, and when I had good teachers and a good principal that was immersive and kept us all engaged, I was engaged. If I'm not engaged, shenanigans is going to happen. And I think that's what's fun.
Lisa, you had some weird teachers. You really did.
I know. We could write a book on that. But
my
Lee,
gosh.
Always good to have you on the show. It's always a pleasure. And
always fun talking to you too.
I know we always get into shenanigans somewhere, right? That's one thing you can always trust that we go off topic a little bit. Something naughty is talked about, and we have a good time no matter what we're talking about. Even if it's, talking about death, we have a good time. So everyone, again, keep up with Lee. Go to thetrustarchitect.biz. And also for her end of life doula work, go to souljourneydoula.com, and I'll find that link for her article and also put it in the show notes for you. We thank you, listeners, as always, for joining us here on Big Blend Radio. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you all so much. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Nancy.